Welcome back to the DNA Pest Control Podcast. Aaron
and Daniel,
you're finally back in the studio.
I am. I'm not a nomad on the road anymore.
You missed one.
I did.
It's okay though. So today we have an awesome guest, a guest that I actually contacted, and he'll know probably about a year ago, maybe more. He sent me his email. We never got in contact, so that was my fault. But we did finally get back in contact to get him on to the podcast, which is great. And I had no idea, but I was actually buying products from him.
Yeah, we just found that out.
So I had no idea. I never connected it. I don't know why I never connected it.
Right.
I saw everything. Everything made sense. It all connected, but it just wasn't there.
Sure.
And who is this guest, Aaron?
So today, awesome guest, we have Andrew Greess. He is the president for Q Spray. He has 22 years in the industry. We're going to bring him in. Andrew, can you hear us?
I can. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come on the show. We appreciate that.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Before we dive into the meat and potatoes, just for some of our listeners and viewers, just a quick rundown on what is Q Spray. You know, some people may have never heard of it or...
Q Spray is a pest control equipment website, and I'm proud to say we sell to pest control professionals, not to homeowners like a lot of our competitors do. And the other thing I'd say about Q Spray is we sell hard-to-find parts. In the introduction, Daniel was saying he bought some Actisol parts from us. Lots of companies sell Actisol machines. We sell all the parts. Lots of companies sell B&Gs. We sell all the parts. Lots of companies sell Cox hose drills. We sell all the parts. Lots of companies sell Birchmeier. We sell all the parts because we don't think a pest control company should be down because they can't find a $3 O-ring. So we take pride in having the parts to keep our customers in business.
Yeah, no, and I can, I back that up because we do find it actually, and I've found it very difficult to find certain parts and everything like that. So it's refreshing when I've actually gone on there and I've purchased multiple times for certain parts, whether it is B&G, and you just get random stuff. I mean, guys out in the field, I mean, they know it. I mean, we have all of our listeners or technicians, owners, operators, and some weird stuff breaks, I mean, it's just like, where are you going to find that random piece of a handle of the B&G with the plunger and the guy broke the handle off, and you can't, you have to buy a whole new section, a handle or the plunger itself. It's just difficult to find. So It is awesome. And Andrew, how long have you been in business? I know he already introduced it.
I've owned Q Spray for 22 years. But I've been in business a lot longer than that.
Okay. What made you get into selling, pest control parts?
Well, I was a vice president at American Express, and I just realized I was getting good at writing memos, and I didn't want to spend my life writing memos. And I decided I have to get out of here because if I'm here much longer, I'm going to be stuck here forever. I saw it happen to people around me, and I just started looking for businesses. And I love pest control. First of all, when there's roaches crawling around the house, mommy's going to tell daddy, get this taken care of. I mean, you can put off buying the new car, but you can't put off getting rid of the roaches. And so I like the fact that it's something that has to be taken care of, and it attracted me. And that was 22 years ago.
Wow. So American Express, you were the vice president over American Express. Where does that, how does that connect? Where did pest control in America? I mean, it's so different. How did that even get in?
Well, I have to say I was a vice president of American Express. I wasn't the vice president. There were lots of them.
Oh, okay.
But I actually was in commercial real estate for a couple of years in between there.
Oh, okay.
And I was in commercial real estate until 2001 when the towers went down. Commercial real estate, the business just evaporated. So I started looking for businesses, and I found this one and bought it and grew it, and been having mostly. I can't say it's fun every day, as you know, owning a business isn't fun every day, but most of the time it's been fun. I got some great people working with us, and I got some great customers, and most of the time it's a ton of fun.
Oh no, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of clears it up a little bit better. I was going to say vice president, jump into pest control parts. But that makes a lot of sense. And from the 22 years, kind of being in the industry and kind of seeing those changes, what has been something that you've seen that has been a huge change in the industry for you?
Well, the main thing I see is it's just so hard to find people now.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be you put an ad in the paper, you put an ad on Craigslist or something, you find someone, and it's just getting so hard to find people that you got to take care of your people. You got to give them the right equipment to do their jobs. You got to get rid of as many frustrating parts of the job as possible, because it's just, that's what I hear all my customers and friends talking about is I can't find people.
Mm-hmm.
And, our role in that is making sure that the techs have the right equipment and they're not down waiting for, like we said, a $3 O-ring, because that's frustrating for them as well. That's the biggest thing I see.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because we've had a ton of guests on, and one of the biggest complaints is the amount of equipment that they can have or the access to equipment, right. And it is a big frustrating, part of the job for the tech is my company doesn't have this or they didn't fix that, so I can see that. I can actually see that a lot going back. Jumping into kind of what we wanted to talk about today, because you are the expert in the parts section. And something that you brought up is, quality equipment compared to the cheaper equipment. And I know what do you wanted to say about that? What was the main thing that you wanted to focus with the cheaper equipment compared to the better equipment?
Well, in my, I think that productivity is the key. I mean, the biggest expense for almost every size pest control company is labor, is people. And so productivity, making sure the technicians are out there spending their time helping customers, of course, but generating revenue is absolutely the most critical thing, most critical job for company owners. Make sure your people are productive, helping customers, making money. And buying cheap equipment doesn't do that. And you have to buy a piece of equipment once, but you have to pay that productivity price that your tech's using that equipment every day. And so, we think that starting with top quality equipment is absolutely critical, because it's going to keep working a lot longer and have fewer problems than that cheap piece of junk you bought at Home Depot. Mm-hmm. And productivity is the name of the game. And we think that's absolutely critical. The NPMA does this operating ratio study every 10 years or so, and every year it comes out that personnel labor is the biggest expense, and you got to keep your people working and keep them making you money.
Yeah, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about certain products or I guess brands. Do you want to get into that specifically, or?
I would prefer not to, because okay. Some people are going to agree with me and some people are not going to agree with me, and we're not going to change anyone's mind. I'll give you an example. True. Birchmeier backpacks, I think, are the best backpacks out there, manual backpacks. Uh-huh. And they're expensive, and some people don't want to buy them. But if you it's like a B&G. If you take care of it, the thing will last, years and years and years.
Yeah.
But not everyone agrees with that, and I don't think I'm going to convince anyone.
Yeah, good point. Everybody does have their own opinion on equipment and what they want to get and what they don't want to get. And unless you've tested it out and actually seen for yourself, you're not going to know. And you're right. You're not going to convince someone because they don't want to know. I can attest to that. I do have a Birchmeier backpack sprayer. I do have a B&G backpack sprayer, both automatics. And those two backpack sprayers were expensive, and they've lasted longer than the other cheap ones that we purchased. So I can agree with that on the more expensive products, equipment you are buying, the longer they are going to last. And even in my opinion, the less I've actually had to worry about them and fix them. I guess the biggest thing is just like the straps.
Yeah.
Not the equipment itself. It's actually just the straps wear out. And I've had to replace those more often than anything else on those backpacks.
Wow.
Another key point, you're talking about purchasing quality equipment, is when you make your purchase, it's absolutely critical that you think about maintenance when you buy it. A lot of companies or a lot of people don't worry about maintenance till it needs maintenance, and then it's too late. So when you're buying a piece of equipment, make sure you understand, talk to the person selling it to you. What are the parts that are likely to fail or wear out, and where do I get them, and how much do they cost, and who's going to put them in? Can we put them in ourselves? Can my tech put them in? Do I need a mechanic? Do I need a pest control equipment repair shop like qspray.com? What can I expect to fail or wear out, and make sure you know that before you make the purchase. And a great example of that is we sell tons of power spray rigs, and with moving parts and higher pressure, stuff is going to fail. Mm-hmm. And you need to make sure you can get to the parts that are going to fail. And we see lots of power spray rigs come in our repair shop with issues like, for me to get to that part to fix it, I got to take that entire rig out of the truck, which just added a couple hours to this job. Mm-hmm. Which means it's a couple more hours that tech is going to be unproductive. So think about maintenance before you buy, and make sure you're asking those questions.
Yeah, and so they can ask you those questions prior to purchase?
Absolutely. I wish they would, because if they're buying from me, they can talk to me or one of my guys, and we're going to answer them. If they buy from, let's do our own pest control, to put the pest control guys out of business.com, they're not going to be talking to a guy with experience like me or some of my folks.
Yeah, no. And you know what? There is so many, I have a quick kind of funny story is I had a guy who had a quick disconnect, for a gun. So you can just pop it off, pop it on. Right. Mm. And it was leaking, and he's like, "Hey, it's leaking. I need to, what do I do?" And I'm like, "Well, you need to get, plumber's tape. You need to put it around. You got to tighten it up. It's not on the disconnect, right? The disconnect wasn't the issue. It was actually just wasn't screwed on all the way. It wasn't tight enough." And so I explained it to him. I wasn't there to show him. He came to the office. He put on Teflon tape, or the plumber's tape, and took off. And I'm like, "Hey, did it work?" And he's like, yeah, it helped it. It was working. And well, about a week later, I ended up hopping in his truck, and I was using his backpack sprayer that had the quick disconnect, and it started leaking again. And I'm like, "What is going on? Why is it leaking?" And I end up pulling off the quick disconnect, and he put the tape inside the quick disconnect. Love that. So it was still loose. Yeah. I ended up, and I didn't have any tools, so I had to use that tape around, to screw it back on, and it worked, and it actually stopped the leak just by hand tightening it. Mm-hmm. But, it's shocking how many guys get into the industry, but they don't know anything about equipment. They don't understand pressure. They don't understand liquid and the way it flows. They don't understand pumps. And so when they're connecting stuff up or they're getting into it, they're usually in the dark. It's like, how does this piece of equipment work? So it's good to know that they can contact you, and they have a point of contact of call Andrew, talk to Andrew, email Andrew or his team, and get the right answers prior to purchasing the equipment. Or even if you have it, right? Email Andrew, figure it out, because there's so many guys that don't understand equipment. I know how to spray a bug. I don't know how the B&G works. Right. I know how to spray outside. I don't know how my, power rig works on my vehicle. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. It's leaking or it's losing pressure or whatever it is. And it's like, where do I go? Yeah. What do I do? And there's a lot of guys that don't know that. Mm-hmm. So
what I'd say there is, I think you hit on a really good point. It's critical for techs to understand how stuff works. I don't want every tech repairing stuff. Because a lot of them, if they're a great tech, you don't need them to be a great mechanic, but they need to understand basically how stuff works, so that when they do have a problem or when they do sense something's going wrong, they can communicate it either to the boss or to the repair shop or whoever. Mm-hmm. We have guys come in and point to their engine and say, "My pump doesn't work." You really want to know basically how a B&G works, so that you can, when you bring it to a repair shop, you can explain what the issue is and save a ton of time in the repair and save you money and get this tick back out on the road.
Yep.
And another great example of not asking questions up front. This was a couple of years ago, and a tech came into the shop. It was a problem with his pump. So I walk out to his truck to start looking at the equipment, and the hose reel is right over the engine. And so I said, how do you, the hose is right over the gas tank on this Honda engine. I go, how do you put gas in this thing? He says, well, I have to unroll the hose so I can put the gas in.
No way.
And that's the kind of thing, you need to be asking these questions before you buy, because you got to put gas in it every day. So every day he's unrolling 300 feet of hose, putting the gas in and rolling 300 feet of hose back up.
Yeah.
And it's just nuts. I don't care how much that spray rig cost. It wasn't worth it.
No.
And you got to ask these questions and think about these things before you put it in your truck.
Yeah, no. And that's something, for the listeners, it is, think about that when you're jumping in and you're choosing your, piece of equipment that you do need. That is great. Is plan for the maintenance. What do you need? Do you need rebuild kits? What does that look like? How often should you do that? We had with NPMA talking about that at Pest World one year. They actually went in and explained how important it is just for a B&G tip to get replaced. Because as you're using it every single day, the water, the chemical, it starts to wear out that tip. And as it wears out that tip, you start to use more product than you were meant to use. And you start to see a decrease essentially in profits because you're using more product than you should. And so replacing those pieces, which are really cheap, in the long run is actually better. And doing that on a yearly basis is actually better. I don't know if you have anything to say on top of that, Andrew.
Yeah, I've seen that study from B&G, and they say the tip wears out 10% a year, and 10% more chemical costs a heck of a lot more than a new B&G tip.
Yes, it does.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So it does. But the next thing is, and you talked about this, and this is something that I think I've messed up on quite a bit in my career here, is if it is critical, back it up. That is one thing that you said. If it's a good piece of equipment you're using on a daily basis and you can have a backup, right? Backpack sprayers go down. What do you do to, sometimes you can't fix them in just 10 minutes, pulling it apart, putting it back together. It takes a couple days, or you have to buy a whole new one. And what's your opinion on that, Andrew?
That's the point, is if it's critical to your business, if it's a piece of equipment that you need to do your job, you need to have a backup, because anyone who's been in business knows stuff happens. And a lot of that stuff that happens is not good. It's frustrating, but I'm not saying duplicate every piece of equipment in your fleet, but if it's critical, back it up and be creative. It doesn't mean like if you have a power spray rig, you need another power spray rig, but if you're using a B&G every day, and you need a backup, and maybe the way to do that is not just buy another B&G, but maybe, if you replace your B&Gs every 5 years, maybe replace one in 2 or 3 years and keep the old one in the corner as a backup. Now, the other thing about keeping a backup is you got to test it occasionally. If you put something in the corner for a couple of years and don't use it or don't test it, there's a pretty good chance some of that, there's going to be a problem. The rubber's going to dry out or something. So be creative, look at your equipment, think about what is critical, think about what can I do for a backup, and then, keep that backup, but you got to test it periodically to make sure it's going to be there for you when you need it. But absolutely, if you can't do your job without a B&G sprayer, man, you need a backup. Yeah.
No. I agree with that 100%. I've been caught with my pants down multiple times, and I've had to go buy a B&G very quickly, or a backpack sprayer, and hurry and connect everything up so I'm good for the day until I can get that other one fixed. So having that backup is huge. Now, some of my questions on specific equipment, and I'm going to ask this, and this is for me. So anybody else listening, if you use this equipment, awesome. If not, well, send in the question. We'll send it over to Andrew to answer. But on a B&G, why is it so bad to keep it pressurized all night long?
That's a great question. And I'm going to answer that in 2 parts. One is when anything's under pressure, it's not going to last as long. I use the example of myself. I go to the gym a few times a week because I got to release the pressure. And if you keep your B&G under pressure, then it's not going to hurt the stainless steel can. But the rubber parts, it's gonna put more stress on those rubber parts, and they're gonna fail more quickly. The other thing that's critical is, and I don't even know where are you guys? Where's your studio located?
Sacramento.
Sacramento. So you don't have as many, you probably get an occasional deep freeze, but it's not a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
But when there's a deep freeze and your equipment's under pressure, you're going to have a problem. It's a guarantee.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, this was several years ago. We're in Phoenix, Arizona, so we don't get many deep freezes, but there was a deep freeze. And the next morning, there was a line of pest control trucks outside our repair shop, and all their B&Gs had split, where the B&G wand curves. Right on that curve is the weak point because the cable rubs against it.
Yeah.
And every single person there was there with a split B&G wand because they left it under pressure, and that was the weak point. That's where it burst. And we fixed as many as we could. We ran out of wands, and we started calling our competitors. Hey, you got it? No, we're out too. You got it? And when something's under pressure and it's a freeze, it's going to make the problem 100 times worse.
Okay. Okay.
The other thing is, let me make one more point, and that is when you're in a warm climate like Arizona, when something's under pressure, for example, in Arizona, it could be 120 degrees outside in the summer, and it's going to be even hotter than that on your truck. And if you leave it under pressure, that heat is going to increase that pressure even more and really put that equipment under stress. And you're going to, it's the rubber parts that are going to go first, the O-rings and the gaskets. Mm-hmm. So we recommend, I would prefer you release the pressure after every stop. That ain't going to happen. Tech's not going to do that, but at least release the pressure at the end of the day. You'll eliminate a lot of problems.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I always had that question because I've always heard it, but I've never got a really good answer of why.
Yeah.
So,
well, I hope you had a good answer there, and it's not never right now.
No. And that's the thing is I've always done it. I've just never had everyone says it, but it's, I'm big on why. I'm big on explain it to me. I want to understand. And I'll do it. I mean, I'm not fighting. I just want to know. I just want to understand how it works, how it functions. And, it makes a lot of sense with the pressure and all the seals. It makes a lot of sense where it could possibly stretch out some of those parts or those rubber, seals where you start to get leaks or you're losing pressure or whatever it may be. So it makes a lot of sense. The next question is specifically with backpacks and B&Gs, because at least here in California, a lot of the industry is actually moving away from a power rig altogether, and they're focusing more on backpack sprayers. You'll still have a tank with a pump, at least we do, but it's typically just water, so you're just filling up, your B&G or your backpack sprayer. You're not using their hose. But with a backpack sprayer and a B&G, how often should we clean them out, and how?
Well, this is another one where, in the perfect world, I have an answer for the now I'm in the real life in pest control industry.
Yeah.
I would love it if every tech would clean out their equipment at the end of the week.
Oh, okay. Weekly.
That would be great, but it isn't going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen. So monthly would be wonderful. And you need to clean these pieces of equipment out for a number of reasons. One is, if you don't, there could be debris that's going to clog. In the case of a B&G or a backpack, all you need is one little tiny grain of sand or something in that tip, and you're basically out of business. Mm-hmm. So cleaning it out, running clean water through it, reduces the possibility of that kind of problem. Number two is chemical settles. And if you're not cleaning it out regularly, then that chemical can settle to the bottom of the tank. And that does two things. One is, that customer's paying you for you to apply that chemical. And if it's hardened on the bottom of your tank, they're not getting it. So they're not getting the service they paid for.
Yeah.
And B, you could have a callback.
Yep.
Because you're not applying the right chemical ratio. And lastly, if that chemical is built up on the bottom of that B&G or that backpack, it could break loose, and now you're clogging something. Mm-hmm. So if techs would clean their equipment out regularly, and I'll let the business owner decide what regular is, they would reduce a lot of problems.
And how
we see it all the time.
And how would you clean that out? Just with fresh water, or is there a certain chemical or a cleaner agent, that you would put in it?
I would use the standard we use with a chemical container. I triple rinse it. Mm-hmm. I triple rinse the can, and then after I've rinsed the can 3 times, I run that clean water. I put the thing back under pressure and run clean water through it.
Okay.
And through the whole system. And if it's really dirty, there's tank cleaner products that are available like Q Spray or hell anywhere you shop.
Yeah.
You can run tank cleaner through it.
Okay.
And generally, if you're doing it regularly, you probably won't need that.
Okay. So that would be more if there's like
sprayers.
A buildup on the bottom of a lot of chemical, because we have that in some of our backpack sprayers. We get a ton of the white film that just cakes on the bottom. Okay.
You want to get rid of that. Whatever it takes, you want to get rid of that.
Okay.
Because it's not if, it's when it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that cleaner that you do have, that will take away that white film.
It should. I mean, you gotta, everyone's got to use their head here, man. If you got a white film in the bottom of the backpack, do what you got to do to get rid of it.
Yeah. Scrub it, whatever.
And that's exactly right. And look at it before you say, "Oh, I'm done."
Yeah. No, yep. Okay. Perfect. Actually, and one other question that just popped into my head. I'm sure you've dealt with this, especially in Arizona. There's no way you haven't. We have 2 vehicles that have a plastic tank. Those 2 plastic tanks always get mildew, mold inside of the tank. Is there anything you can do to prevent that, or to make it so it doesn't happen? Or is there a chemical that you can put in there that you can mix with other chemicals, or it's okay to put in?
That's a tough one, and I'm going to be real careful here because I don't want someone calling me up and saying, "You said this." And so,
Yes,
the first thing is, if you're cleaning out your tank regularly, especially on a power sprayer, you can reduce that. And on a power sprayer, you might have to actually take the gun and pressure wash the inside of the tank.
Okay.
Bleach will kill most of those types of things, but I'm real cautious about telling someone to put bleach in a sprayer.
Yeah.
But and then some chemicals are worse than others.
Yes.
And so one of the things you could do is contact the person who sold you the chemical and ask them, because it really is going to be specific to that product and that piece of equipment, which is why I'm a little nervous about committing on this one. I usually have a strong opinion here. I'm just a little nervous.
Yeah.
But when you see that, you got to jump on it. Don't let it, "Oh, I'll take care of that next month when I'm on vacation." You want to jump on that because it's going to get worse.
Oh yeah, no, we've had it, and I've been inside a back of a truck cleaning it out. I got a freaking toilet scrubber in my hand, and I'm scrubbing away, trying to get this stuff off as much as possible, because it just cakes on, and technicians don't care. So you get it when the tank's green, and you're like, "That's not the color. That's not what it's supposed to look like."
Dan, you just raised another great point I'd like to make is, you want to address problems right away. You don't want to let them put off addressing the problem. It's like when your kitchen sink leaks, it's a slow drip, and you can deal with a slow drip, but eventually it's going to be a steady stream. And when it's a steady stream, you're going to fix it because now it's costing me money. And it's the same with pest control equipment. You really want to talk with your techs and reinforce with your techs when you think there's a problem. Please tell me. And it's up to the boss. Do you want to tell the boss, the supervisor? You want to tell the equipment guy, whoever? When you think there's a problem, please say something, because pest control equipment, your kitchen sink, the water's, it's clean, fresh water. It's inside, it's air conditioned. There's hardly any pressure. On your pest control equipment, it's harsh chemicals. It's out in the sun. It's being used under pressure 8, 10, 12 hours a day. It's being thrown in the truck. Equipment problems with pest control get much worse. And so when you think there's a problem, like we talked about with the algae or whatever it is, deal with it right away, or a slow leak, deal with it right away, because those problems get worse. And here's something, I don't like to say always or never, but small problems always get worse, and big problems always cost more money to fix and always take longer to fix. And the other thing about pest control equipment problems is they happen when you're busy. Yeah. And so, your equipment doesn't fail like on Christmas break when you got the week off. It fails in the middle of the summer when you got 12 or 15 stops, and you go to the pest control repair shop, and there's 20 guys in front of you because they all have the same problem. Yeah. And so fix those problems, or at least address the problems. Raise your hand and tell someone, "Hey, I think I got a problem here. This equipment doesn't sound right, or it seems like there's a drip." Address those problems quickly, promptly, immediately, and you'll save yourself a ton of time and a ton of money.
Yeah. No. I think it's there. I think it's really hard to get guys to tell you for some reason. Yeah. They think they're going to get in trouble or whatever it may be. And I'm usually the one where it's like, I don't know why it's not working. And then I get the B&G and I'm like, well, because your handle's gone. Like, where did it go? Like, what do you mean you didn't know why it's not working? Like, you're missing a whole piece. And so, yeah, I totally understand that, where it's trying to gain that confidence and helping the guys understand. It's like, tell us. And we've kind of put it in, and hopefully we did it the right way. I don't know. It's more of, if we find out, we're going to be pretty pissed off. If you tell us, we're going to be able to fix it and we're going to help. Yeah. And we're on your side. But if we have to find that issue, yeah, we're going to have some issues here. We're going to have a bigger problem, because
that's a great point. If you rip a guy's head off when he tells you he's got a problem, no one's going to tell you they've got a problem.
Yeah. No, and it's tell me. I want to know prior.
Yeah.
If I find it out, I'm going to be upset with you because you didn't tell me. But if you tell me prior, hey, everything's okay. Let's get it figured out. Let's work on it. And so you have on here as well as kind of a pre-flight checklist. Do you have a quick sampler that you kind of throw out at guys?
I do, and if anyone wants one, they can email me. I have one that I've made up.
Oh, cool.
But nice. You should. Every company should have their own. But the analogy is a pilot. Every single pilot in the world, I don't care whether you're flying a Cessna or a 747, every single pilot in the world does a pre-flight check of their equipment before they take off. Mm-hmm. And I think as pest professionals, we should do the same thing. Do a quick check of your equipment before you drive off. Because my thought is, if I'm going to have a problem, I want to have it right here. I don't want to have it in front of my customer's house. Yes. I don't want to have it at the corner of Main and Main with, everyone looking. I want to have it, I want to have it at my home or the shop, wherever my truck is, where I can fix it and deal with it and not be embarrassed and not have a chemical spill. And so do a quick check of your equipment. The easiest way is, if you use a B&G, pump it up before you go and just make sure it's not going to leak. And you got a nice, good stream. If you got a power sprayer, are there any, look in your truck, is everything secure? Here's a really good point. This will save everyone money right here. Before you drive off, make sure your equipment's secure.
There you go.
I can't tell you how many B&Gs and how many backpacks and how many other pieces of equipment we fixed because it wasn't secure and someone hits the brakes or something rolls and hits and it's got to be repaired. So, check your truck, check your equipment. On a power sprayer, are there any leaks? Is there any liquid anywhere it's not supposed to be? Is there a puddle of oil under your Honda engine? Yeah. Okay. And if you start stuff up and put it under pressure before you drive off and do a quick check, you can avoid problems, or you won't avoid problems. You'll have a problem where you can fix it, as opposed to having a problem where it's going to be a bigger issue. I mean, you do not want to get to your customer's house and say, Mrs. Jones, I'm sorry, my equipment isn't working. I'll be back in 2 hours. You'd rather call her and say, Mrs. Jones, I'm going to be 15 minutes late, but I will be there. Mm-hmm. It's a lot different. It's a lot different situation, a lot different message to that customer. Because equipment's going to fail. I mean, I don't care how good it is. Equipment's going to eventually fail, but you want to have it fail where you can deal with it. A pilot doesn't want to have a problem in the air. He or she wants to have a problem right here on the ground.
Yes.
And same with pest control techs.
Yeah. And when it comes to training them and to inspect or re-inspect their equipment, do you have any tips and tricks on that as well?
It comes down, everyone's equipment is different. Mm-hmm. So what I'd say is, if you're the boss or the owner or the supervisor, come up with a checklist for your equipment. Is everything in the right place? Do you have here's another one. I can't tell you the number of guys who go to a job site and then get there and realize, I don't have the glue boards, or I don't have this. I mean, that's another thing of the pre-flight checklist, is make sure you have the supplies you need. It doesn't have to be equipment. Make sure you have the supplies you need to do your job. And so, as the owner of a company, I would come up with a custom list for my techs, my trucks, my service type, and figure out, what are the 10 or 15 things that I want my guys to check real quick. It doesn't have to take more than a minute or two.
Yeah.
Just do a quick inspection before they drive off.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm not sure. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
No, yeah, it did. I mean, and that's something I try to pull in my guys every once in a while and kind of show them, hey, this is how the B&G works. This is where the little filter is in the handle, and this is what you need to check. And if something goes on, because a lot of the stuff that I've found is the handle will get unscrewed, and so the actual plunger piece itself that's pumping it up is now getting extended because the handle is slowly getting unscrewed. And so as they pump it, they're actually pushing that plunger at the very bottom, the actually cap that actually holds the pressure out, and then it doesn't hold pressure anymore. And so it's really small fixes I've noticed, or small little things that you're just checking. Is the handle all the way screwed? You know, is it screwed all the way on? Is the little back piece on the B&G handle, is it screwed all the way in so you can't press the handle down? Because some guys will just try to manhandle that. And it's, hey, there's a little piece back there blocking, you know, those other pieces so they can't fall out. And so you have to understand, is that unscrewed? Is that opened up so you can open that handle up? So I have seen that. And it's just trying to train and retrain and teach these guys, because they see it once and then they don't ever see it again until it happens. And it's usually for each guy, once a year, once every couple of years, some random thing happens. So they never learn. But if you're the owner, operator, manager, running it, seeing it every day, well, you get to see it once a week.
Sure.
Your guys don't get to see it once a week. So it's trying to bring that up and show them. But yeah, you did answer it, is having that list ready for them, showing them that, taking the time to sit them down and train them, and really kind of go through the equipment with them and what they're using, because they do need to understand it. And then they can prevent a lot of issues or even headaches of, my B&G doesn't work. Then they're driving to the office 30, 45 minutes. And then you're like, oh, look, there's a little plunger you got to push in. And then it's like, oh, that was it. And it was like, yep, that was it.
You know, a couple of really good points there is, just because you trained a tech on day one doesn't mean he's still doing what you want him to do.
Yes.
Techs look for shortcuts. They see what other people do. So, you know, a lot of my customers have meetings with their techs, and they teach them how to sell a bird job or teach them how to sell a rodent job. You know, occasionally teach them about the equipment. Just because you train them on day one doesn't mean he's still doing it. Another key point is, you know, it's a tendency as a boss sometimes to, you know, go, oh, shucks, when someone brings you a problem. You know, if you do an inspection and someone has really nice equipment, compliment them in front of everyone else. And I inspected Joe's truck, and his B&G was perfectly clean. If you compliment a guy, he's going to keep doing it. And if you compliment him in front of everyone else, they might start doing it as well. So that's another trick of the trade.
I do think that is good. And Aaron, I know I've been kind of asking all the questions. Do you have anything over the technicians with the equipment? Do you have any questions you want to ask?
No, honestly, I've been kind of soaking this in because I do a lot of the initial training for the technicians, and I myself have to be better about having that pre-flight checklist, you know, because you're just going and going sometimes, and you're just, you know, on autopilot. You're not really looking at some of the fine details. But, you know, I think it's great, some of the points you made about planning for that maintenance before you need it, and kind of having a little bit more initial training on some of the basic stuff and the basic components. Like you said, you don't need a great tech to be a great mechanic, but still, you prevent a lot of these headaches. You know, you have a commercial guy who's 3 hours away and he calls you at 6 a.m. He's like, hey, my backpack sprayer doesn't work, you know, versus having that pre-flight checklist before where he's testing the pressure, testing everything out. Some of that could have been avoided. So,
yeah.
Okay, can I make another point on exactly what you're talking about there, Aaron?
Yes.
And that is emergency repair kits. I don't want every tech being a mechanic and trying to fix everything, but there's a few things that a tech can carry on his or her vehicle to deal with a problem and not have to drive 45 minutes back to the shop or the repair shop. So, for example, on a B&G, you know, the tip, the P268 gasket at the top of the can, the check valve at the bottom are parts that are going to have a problem, and that I don't even care who you are, any tech can, with 5 minutes of training, can switch those out. On Birchmeier, same thing, you know, the lid gasket. Figure out for your equipment what are the parts that are most likely to fail that can be easily changed in the field. And if you keep an emergency repair kit in the truck, I mean, think of how much time that saves you. You know, if you've got to drive across Sacramento, 45 minutes each way to get a $3 O-ring, it's not worth it.
No.
And so repair kits can really make sense and really save you some time and some money.
Is there a generalized like time frame of when you should just rebuild it? Because I know they have rebuild kits, so you can replace all the gaskets, pull the whole handle apart, redo everything. The Birchmeier backpacks do, the B&Gs do. Is it every year? Is it every 2 years? Do you have your opinion on that?
That's a great question. And what you're talking about is preventative maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And just a key point on preventative maintenance is your equipment is going to fail.
Yes.
Okay. There's no question about it. So the question is, do you want it to fail when it decides to fail, or do you want to decide, because equipment fails when you're busy. It doesn't fail, as we said, on the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
So doing your preventative maintenance will prevent not all, but a lot of these failures.
Yeah.
And so preventative maintenance depends on the product you're using, on the piece of equipment you're using, on how the tech uses it.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly, it's going to vary based on your company and your equipment. So you should have some idea of when that should happen. But certainly once a year, it would make sense to replace the soft parts on a B&G or a Birchmeier.
Okay.
And slow times are a great time to do that. If you're not doing as many stops December 24th as you are on June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have more time to do those sorts of things and prevent those problems. And it's money in the bank, because you're going to have to do it. You're eventually going to have to put those parts in anyway. And the fact that you put them in a month or two sooner doesn't cost you much money. You might as well do it and not have that downtime and not have to call those customers and say, sorry, I can't service you today. A lot of customers, they wait at home for the pest control person. And, it's frustrating when they don't, when they have an appointment scheduled and the person doesn't show up. So do your preventative maintenance and try to eliminate those unexpected downtime issues.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I can see that. And one last question, or I guess it can be a couple. We're going a lot in the direction, like I said, of backpack sprayers, B&Gs, moving away from the power rigs. A lot of the backpack sprayers now are going electric, and you're getting electric pumps and everything like that. So even with the B&G, you have the B&G top that goes right on, press a button, it turns on. The only thing that you can really replace or fix on that is going to be the handle, right? Is there anything that you can do with the pump itself? I mean, we have Birchmeier electric backpack sprayers. I mean, the only thing I know to replace is the handle. I mean, outside of that, I don't know the maintenance side of what do you do with the electric pump? Is you just go till it's dead?
So my answer is it depends on which piece of equipment you have, but certainly some of the things we talked about, if you clean it out regularly,
okay,
if you don't put it away under pressure,
mm-hmm.
that's half the battle.
Yeah.
In fact, it's funny, in our repair shop, when a tech comes in with a problem, it doesn't matter what they say the problem is, we check their filter.
Okay.
And on power sprayers, it's over 50% of the problem is the filter. There's a problem with the filter.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with some of the equipment you're talking about. If you clean it out, run clean water through it, turn it off, release the pressure, don't store it under pressure, clean the filter. Mm-hmm. And that's the only design flaw in a B&G is it's tough you need a couple of wrenches to check the filter.
Yes.
And I don't want every technician putting wrenches to a B&G. I want a guy who's skilled on that, doing that.
Yeah.
But checking the filter, those three things will reduce a lot of the problems. And the backup for the B&G, you're talking about the B&G pressurized tank top.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about keeping a backup. They're not inexpensive. They'll save you a ton of time, so they're worth it. They're not expensive. The backup for the pressurized tank top is the regular manual pump. So make sure when you take when you take the pump out and you put the pressurized tank top on there, make sure you keep the manual pump, because that's your backup.
Yeah. And the other thing, I guess, if anyone does get those, there is one big issue is there's not a way to depressurize those things unless they made them different now. At least the old style ones, you just had to unscrew the top, or you had to hold the B&G till you released all the pressure. But when you did unscrew those, it pops off and there's a little seal in there and that thing will go flying. So just want to throw it out there if anybody has one, because that was a big issue with me, is every time I'd pop that top off and it would be pressurized, because it's not like I'm can use all the gallon at a house. I'm using maybe a quarter, and I'm trying to get it to where it's the very minimal amount of pressure. But every time you pop that top, that seal goes flying. So,
they just redesigned that, and we just started selling those. So I don't have data on that, but I'll look into that. That's
okay,
a great point.
Cool.
Yeah, let me know. I did talk to one of the B&G reps at Pest World. He's like, "Oh, what do you think?" I'm like, "Dude, one, they're too expensive," and I'm like, "I'll give you the list of all the things I've seen with them." I'm not too impressed, other than it does work really well, but there's a few things I didn't like about it where I couldn't depressurize it prior to taking it off. It's you got to hold the handle down, or you got to turn the B&G upside down, so you're just getting air. There's just a lot of stuff there that I'm like, I don't like the design of it.
I am a fan of B&G, so I'm going to come to their defense here with just one quick point is, the pressurized tank top is not inexpensive, but if it can help a tech do his job faster, or it can help you retain a tech, at this company, I don't have to pump. I got the pressurized tank top. I'm going to stay here because I don't have to pump, and I'm 45 years old, and I can feel it in my elbow or my shoulder. I'm going to stay where I am, as opposed to going over there. That's cheap.
Yes. No. And you know what? I don't disagree with you at all. I actually love B&G. I love the top. I just think there's some few things that they could have tweaked to make it a little bit better. But I do agree with you. I do have one, and a guy is actually using it. He's actually an older guy. So he has it pretty easy. All the other guys complain, but they're younger, so they get pump their B&Gs.
We have a customer who they've got 100 trucks, 100 vehicles with power sprayers, and they all have electric rewind hose reels, and that's an employee retention tool for them. Employees don't want to go to another company where they have to crank the handle.
They're just.
Not for everyone, but certainly for some. And like we talked about at the beginning, finding and keeping people is absolutely critical these days.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And Andrew, before we come to a close, is there anything else you'd like to add or you want to throw out there before we close?
No, I think we talked some key points. Pest control equipment isn't the most important thing in the world, but it help if you pay attention to it and take care of it, it can help you do your job better and help you take care of your customers better. And that puts money in the bank and helps you feed your family. So we take it seriously. I view it if you view it as a strategic investment as opposed to just a pain in the neck expense, and you can eliminate some of these problems and boost your productivity, it really pays dividends.
Oh, absolutely. And for all the listeners, they can find you on Instagram at QSpray, right?
I'm an old man. I'm not a big Instagram guy. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. I am on Instagram. I think it's actually Pest Control Equipment on Instagram, but I'm not putting anything on there. We're at qspray.com. You want to find me, go to qspray.com.
Perfect.
We respond to every inquiry, and we take this seriously, and I appreciate people tuning in and listening.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys having me on.
No. We appreciate you coming on and taking your time to be a part of this. And honestly, I can say, and I buy stuff from you. So, it's really nice when I can go in and I'm pulling that equipment apart and I need a specific piece and I literally just bought one. I don't even know the name of it. I just went in because when you look up the product, I want everyone to know I actually did this with the Axol machine. I went down, I found a specific tiny little piece that goes into a tip of the B&G. It's ridiculous. The tip got unscrewed. Actually, it was on Aaron's vehicle. It got unscrewed. We lost that tip. Didn't know where it was. Went on your website, found it. Saved the day. Equipment's up and going.
Yep.
Took 2 seconds, got shipped out right away. I think I got it in like 3 days. And that was standard shipping. So I know we're not too far, so it may be a little bit different for somebody else, but it was really quick, found exactly the piece I needed, and it was very specific. And you know what else I did, Andrew? I actually took your advice, and I bought an entire handle too. So we're waiting for that to come in, but we're going to have a handle ready to go when that handle does go down, because that is a big piece of equipment that does happen to go down quite often in the handle itself. And so now I know, hey, I'm going to have a whole nother one ready to go. When something happens to this one, we're going to replace it. We have the other one, and then I'll buy the parts I need then to get that one all fixed up. So I do appreciate what you're doing out there. I appreciate the enthusiasm in it, really the excitement behind the pest control and the equipment that you do. So thanks for doing that for us. And it is always nice to know there is something out there. There's somebody, there's a company that you can go to and it's reliable and they have everything you need. So I do appreciate that because it is really nice.
Thank you for the kind words.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Andrew. You have a great weekend.
Thanks, gentlemen. Take care.
All right. Bye. All right. There we go. We have Andrew.
Andrew Grease.
Andrew Grease, thank you for coming on and being a part of the DNA Pest Control podcast.
Yeah.
It's always enjoyable to talk to these guys.
Honestly, and someone that is that passionate and knowledgeable about it with that much experience too. I mean, I got a ton from that. It's stuff that we do every day,
huge.
but it's like looking at it a little bit different in terms of like how we train people on equipment, what we're looking for, the preventative maintenance stuff, having the backup. It's just little things that you don't even think about.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly what I mean is you talk to this professional, we have those professionals on that are specific in that field, right? Sylvia, Andrew. I mean, there's so many more and they know so much about equipment.
Right.
And this is another big thing that guys don't realize. You want to start your own company. That's awesome. I am totally for that. Do you even know how to rebuild a B&G? Like, do you even know how it works or functions?
Yeah.
Most people don't. Most people literally don't understand. I mean, and I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Go for it.
I had to go through the same thing that you are going through, right?
Yeah.
It's learning that equipment and figuring it out. I didn't know that as you're pumping it, the plunger and the starts to push out the piece and the body. Like, how would you know that?
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Yeah, seriously.
I never thought that would ever be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that a guy could break off a handle.
Yeah.
With the pole still inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. And now I'm learning that as time goes on and guys break equipment and you get different people in that treat equipment differently. But those are just things you don't know and you don't get to know and you don't get that. And these guys know.
Sure.
And they're willing to help out and they're giving you, I mean, they're literally taking years off of the learning curve.
Yeah.
I give it with John Woodward, now at Forshaw. He came in and I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
It was like, look, what do I need?
Yeah,
what do I not
do?
need? Yeah, with all the chemicals, because I didn't know. And he was willing to say, okay, look, you need this, you don't need that. That's way too much. You probably need to cut that back. And he was going through that. And Andrew is a perfect example of he's there. He's going to help you.
Great resource.
Absolutely. Equipment, power rigs, B&Gs, your hand cans, your backpack sprayers, understanding what you need, what you don't need, the rebuild kits that you may need that you should have on your trucks. I'm telling you right now I'm going to be contacting him. I'm going to be emailing him more about this because that was one big thing that as we had one truck, it was like, okay, it's not a big deal, whatever, right? You get a second truck. Okay, we can fix it on the spot. We'll figure it out.
Sure.
As you start getting into 5, 6 trucks, 7 trucks, now you have 7 backpack sprayers. Now you have 7 hand cans, 8 hand cans, 10. It starts to add up and you start to think, crap, I need to have like a list of parts.
Seriously.
And I've literally have thought about this over and over. And I'm like, who do I even go to? I don't even know what to do. I know I can go here because they sell the equipment, but I don't want to have a whole rebuild kit for a single piece. Like I need to know all of those parts and I need to keep those certain parts.
Yeah.
And these guys know.
100%.
Oh, because they're working on dozens, if not hundreds of B&Gs at a time.
Yeah.
They know exactly what part's going to go bad.
Yeah. No, seriously.
But some people think, oh, well, he's just going to try to sell it. No. They literally know that seal is going to go bad. Why? Because I literally sell these seals every single day to hundreds of technicians that are out in the field. Getting that, understanding that. You're getting into it. You're picking your equipment out. Use them.
100%.
What backpack sprayer lasts the longest that you've seen in your opinion? Which ones do I need? What equipment for or what rebuild kits for? What do I need to keep on my vehicle so I'm ready when it does happen?
Yeah.
Like simple as that. And then you can be so far ahead.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is this is not a sponsored video, by the way.
No.
We actually use them. It's cool. It sounds like it, but
Yeah, no.
I remember when we were actually looking for that piece, like how you explained it when we were on with Andrew. You literally said, okay, this is the equipment and it had a drop bar. This is where I needed to look. And it's like, do you want to look at the owner's manual to find the piece? And it literally blew up the image of the handle, all the components through there. So guys, great resource when you're out there.
Yeah.
Q Spray. I haven't even gotten to the full extent of it. I've just gotten, from what you've showed me. So I'll probably dive into it more.
Yeah.
And obviously, Andrew's going to be a great point of contact. If you have any questions that you want us to relay over to him, I'm sure at one point we'll have him back on. So please send that in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to one of these episodes. We do have episodes come out every Monday and Thursday. Pay attention to our Instagram, Facebook page, websites where you can actually be a guest. You can sign up to or throw in questions for the end of the month Q&A. Anything else I'm missing?
No, I think you got it all. Yeah.
I think that's it. But thank you again for listening to the DNA Pest Control Podcast.